Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerding Out on Neurodiversity, the podcast for all things neurodivergence. I'm Dr. Matt Zakreski, clinical psychologist and professional speaker, and I'm happy to be your host through the wild trails of the neurodivergent world.
And I'm Jake Noonan, educational coach and humanities teacher, your co-host and producer, and I'm thrilled to help share the stories and the experiences of wonderful people in the world of neurodiversity.
We're really excited for today's guest, which we are going to say a lot because we're always really excited about every guest we get. So let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerding Out on Neurodiversity. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Zakreski, clinical psychologist, professional speaker, wearer of many hats, not the least of which is co-hosting this illustrious podcast with, of course, the Stitch to my Lilo, Mr. Jake Noonan. Say hi, Jake.
Oh, hi, everybody. It is great as always to be here. Dr. Matt, Stitch is one of, Lilo and Stitch is my favorite Disney movie of all time. And I spent so much of my youth watching that, Stitch TV show on Disney.
Oh, my gosh.
Experiment 625, I think it was the sandwich one where he's always making the peanut butter sandwiches.
Yeah. And my kids wanted to watch the remake, and I was like, The remake does not exist.
No.
It's like back when Disney was not afraid to get a little weird.
And a little experimental.
Because Lilo and Stitch is an objectively weird movie in the best possible way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you ask nicely, I'll do my Stitch voice for you at your wedding.
Ooh, I'm counting on that.
It's pretty solid, I gotta say. But we did our Hawaii reference to today's guest, formerly of Hawaii and now coming to us from parts unknown, the fabulous man of mystery, Mr. Seth Perler. Seth, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Good to be with you, Dr. Matt and Jake. Hello, parents or whoever's listening right now.
People ask us all the time, who listens to you? It's neurodivergent people, people who love neurodivergent people, and people who work with neurodivergent people. So kind of everybody. And also this is not one of those podcasts you stumble upon, what are they talking about? It's very, shall we say, niche.
Yep.
All the podcasts I listen to, where it's obscure ghost hunters from Victorian museums in the Northeast. Oh, that's my kind of podcast. Yeah, we are professional nerds. We'll own it. So, Seth, tell our listeners, whoever they may be, who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Seth Perler. You can find me at sethperler.com and all over YouTube and podcasts and stuff like that. I am an expert in the executive function world, but I like to call myself an executive function nerd because I don't particularly care for the word expert. I'm just honestly a nerd who loves nerding out about executive function and neurodiversity. And I like helping kids who struggle. I like helping kids from any age, but usually it happens to be middle, high school, college kids who struggle with executive function. They struggle with planning, organization, grades, time management, getting important things done when they need to be done, motivation, focus, attention, concentration, things like this. But they're kids who struggle and who don't need to because we have tools to help kids that often parents and teachers are not taught about or trained about. It's astounding how many teachers have never heard of executive function. So part of my mission is to bring the term executive function, albeit a clinical sounding term. On the one hand, it's not rocket science. On the other hand, it's also not simple, but it's not rocket science. And it is something that people should learn about because kids suffer and struggle when they don't need to. We have tools. We have an understanding of the brain. We have different ways of approaching how to serve kids, but people just often are not given the tools to understand this. So that is part of my mission, is teaching the world about this through my YouTube or blog or teacher talks or this or that, and courses and membership and all these sorts of things, but basically teaching the world about what is executive function and then helping kids figure out how to work with this, how to get unstuck.
It's so important. And yeah, it amazes me. In all the talks I do, one of my favorite slides is a brain scan of an ADHD brain next to a neurotypical brain. And it's just look at the difference. Look at the functional difference between these brains. And for all of you knuckle draggers out there who think that ADHD is not real, we can point to the neuroscience. But executive dysfunction doesn't just come from ADHD, right? I mean, it can come from anxiety and depression and all these other
A
things.
brain injury. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've had 4 concussions that I know about. Yikes. And I remember like distinctly, like in the healing process from a concussion, like wanting to lock in and focus and just like, it's like trying to start a car with a dead engine. It's like, so, for all like the people out there who don't get it, I'm like, this is not a question of this kid won't pay attention. This is a question of this kid can't pay attention, right? We all have moments where we zone out. We all have moments where we don't want to do the stuff we don't want to do. But for most humans, they can lock in when they need to, when they absolutely have to. For the kids we serve, it's not that simple. And so we can't treat it as such. So, like, what brought you to this world? What made you want to be a voice for the kids who really need you here?
Well, first of all, thanks for mentioning the can't and the won't. I talk about that as like the big fallacy, because when we look at it as a won't, so I'm going to digress a little bit because this is a really important topic. When we look at it as a won't, then we use things like shame and guilt and punishment and reward and nagging and lectures and logic and reason. And we use all these things because if it's a won't, they're being disrespectful. They're just not trying. They just don't care enough about school. They just won't apply themselves. They won't. If it's a won't, then possibly those things, the punishments, the rewards, the lectures, the convincing, the nagging, the arguing, that sort of pressure may work. But when you have a kiddo and it's a can't, and I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit hole, but part of where I go down this rabbit hole is that what comes up is people will say, but I've seen you do it before. Well, in the context of this moment right now and the executive function that's required for the task that this kid is being asked to do, they can't. And when you look at it through the lens of a can't, well, then that eliminates punishment and rewards and nagging and yelling and arguing and whatever sorts of tools that we thought would work, which, usually we've often been raised with those sorts of tools. So that's what we default to. Nobody's told us any different. And if you're listening to this podcast, I'm glad you're here because it's can't. They can't, given what's going on in the moment. Then what did I digress from? But I don't remember what I digressed from. So you'll have to reel it in there.
Yeah, I'm sure it was important. You've got 3 guys on this podcast who have all struggled with executive functioning in their lives. Like, I'm gifted in ADHD. Jake, I know you're gifted in ADHD. I don't know actually if those are your identities.
I'll tell you my story in a minute. Yeah.
And it's like, even to this point, people will come up to you and say, well, how bad could your ADHD possibly be if you have these platforms, if you do these things? Like, I could never host a podcast with ADHD. It's like, hosting a podcast is the perfect format for ADHD. Dip out and do whatever I want. The public misconception of executive dysfunction harms so many people, including the parents and teachers of the kids they're theoretically trying to help, right? Because if you don't understand what you're trying to resolve, you're going to try and fix it the wrong way.
Exactly. The intervention, when we're talking about the can't and the won't, yeah, you're going to try to fix it the wrong way with that, but also in many other ways. Yeah, spin your wheels and really not help the kid and even unintentionally harm them in terms of them feeling like they can't do anything right, or they're a failure, or they're broken, or something's wrong with them. That is never the intention of the adult. And yet that happens so often. It's probably happened to a lot of people listening here. I know it certainly happened to me.
I mean, would you mind sharing one of those stories?
Yeah, well, I'll how about I'll tell you how I got into this, and this will sort of segue into that. So I struggled with undiagnosed ADHD my whole life. When I was a kid, my report card said lazy, does not apply himself, needs to try, all these sorts of things. And you guys won't be surprised to hear that these were the things that were on my progress reports, these sorts of comments. And I internalized a lot of that. And what I internalized as my primary inner critic was lazy failure. I'm a lazy failure. I give up. I can't do it. This is stupid. Why should I even try? I am a lazy failure. In my heart of hearts, I really did not believe I could do anything. I didn't believe my life would amount to anything. And I was pretty hopeless. And what do you do with that? So what I chose to do with that is act like I didn't care. I pushed it down. I didn't think about it. And I was a people pleaser. I went to college because I was supposed to, and then I failed out of college. went to another college because I was supposed to, and dropped out before I failed out because I figured out at least that I could drop out, but I failed one semester and then dropped out. So, nobody ever said, well, Seth, maybe this has to do with lack of skills that you could actually build upon. That never occurred to me. It's just like, I'm just a lazy failure. So this started in first grade. Kindergarten was fine, but first grade is literally, because I have my progress reports, that's when we start seeing this stuff in my life. I start, resorting to whatever tools I can use to get what I think I need or want. And one of the big ones was lying and manipulating, cheating, these sorts of things. I was very bright and I love creativity. Like podcasts for me, we're not scripted right now. I could talk for hours unscripted and I can go out and lose track of what I'm saying and I can reel it back in. Like my brain can do that. The way I really know how I communicate is because I was a middle school teacher who who loves teaching and who was a pretty decent middle school teacher. Now, if you can get middle schoolers to pay attention, you're doing something right. So anyhow, when I got into middle school, my grades started dropping. My performance started dropping way before then. I mean, I was a space cadet. I was in outer space. I was a daydreamer was one of probably the other things that showed up on my progress reports more than almost any other word. And then being gifted and talented, they didn't know that I was gifted and talented until I was 13. They got me tested for learning disabilities because I was doing so horribly. And they said, well, no, he doesn't have any learning disabilities. In fact, he is gifted. Well, so I was not diagnosed with ADHD back then in the 1930s when it wasn't a thing. Just kidding. I'm not that old. I'm almost that old. And so my parents were then more baffled. Okay, so he's bright, and yet he's still failing. And this is a thing that we still see today. We have gifted kids who may not be identified gifted or ADHD, but are misunderstood. And when a child is misunderstood, when an adult is misunderstood, then we can't be seen and heard and understood and known, which has to do with attachment theory. I love attachment theory stuff. And we feel very isolated and alone and like nobody's got our back. And that impacts our mental health tremendously. And so when I was around 13 and I find this out, then my parents are just more baffled. I go into high school, I half pay attention and do fine for the first couple of years. My junior year, I had to start putting forth some effort, but I had no skills to execute. So I started failing my junior and senior year all over the place because I couldn't turn anything in and I couldn't fake it anymore. And I barely get into college. I got into college based on probation, based on my high ST and ACT scores, and then proceeded to fail out. I got in on a summer school program. So I didn't have a summer break after senior year. I go to summer school at Ball State University. And anytime things were bad, I could always prove to you that I was okay, meaning that in summer school, I had to take 3 courses for this thing to prove myself. And I got 2 A's and a C. And one of the A's was in study skills. That doesn't mean I learned anything in there, but I got an A. I did what I had to do to get that. And then I go on to Ball State, fail out, et cetera, et cetera. So my life got pretty dark. I won't talk about how dark. I don't usually talk about that in depth, but it got dark. And I eventually started turning my life around when I was about 22. Now, I don't know. Yeah, 3 or 4 years later or something like I got this job through the newspaper. Didn't care about the job. We used to have these things called newspapers. We used to have cassettes, cassette tapes, 8 tracks even. Got a job at the newspaper working with kids at an in-school daycare thing. Went from school to school, worked at different schools. So after 6 months of this, I'm driving home. I used to smoke cigarettes. I got a cigarette hanging out of my mouth. I had long hair at the time. My hair is flying all over the place. I'm driving a stick shift with my cigarette and the radio on and everything, leaving work, working with kids. And I loved working with kids. I'm just like smiling ear to ear. And that was like one of maybe 5 or 10 moments in my life when I had a big epiphany. And I was just like, wow, this makes me happy. I'm going to do this the rest of my life. Literally in that moment. And I've not looked back since. And I dedicated my life to serving kids. And I never wanted kids to suffer the way I suffered, some of the shame I experienced, some of the teachers that misunderstood me and the shame I experienced around that. I never wanted kids to experience that. And what I want for kids is them to see how awesome they are. I become a teacher. I fell in love with teaching. I love the art of teaching, but I couldn't stand the system. Worked in several different schools, helped open a school, was a lead teacher, wrote curriculum, did all the things, worked with all these different ages. And after 12 years, I left teaching and started doing what I'm doing now. I felt like being a teacher, I couldn't do what I felt called to do on this planet during this blip of a lifetime. And I wanted to serve in a way that really mattered to me. For me, it was these kids that are struggling. I wanted to not just be a teacher, again, which I love and I miss. I miss teaching. I don't miss the BS, but I miss teaching. But I wanted to help kids who fell through the cracks, who didn't need to, and kids who struggle with executive function, whether or not there was a diagnosis of any sort. The kids that struggled is what I am drawn to. I love taking a kid who has the super loud inner critic, who's struggling, who can't figure it out, who's stuck, whose parents are stuck, and helping them figure out how awesome they are and helping them turn the corner, even if they're resistant. They're like, I don't need this. I don't need help. Everything's fine. My parents just bug me too much and the teachers lose my work or whatever the thing is. Probably 95% of the kids, when they start working with me, they're resistant. They've had a bunch of negative experiences. They don't want some other person who's going to make them feel broken. And I'm very good at not doing that because I really love to help them see how awesome they are. And I love a challenge and I love helping them turn that corner.
And you truly have a gift for that.
Thank you. It is fun for me.
Jake, do you have any reflections on someone who loves the art of teaching, but maybe doesn't like the system of teaching? I don't know why that would call to you. It's instinct, I guess.
No idea why that would call to me at all. No, but speaking as somebody who like you're talking about essentially like my similar professional trajectory as well. Like I was teaching, doing the exact same kind of thing where it's like doing all the grades, doing all the curriculum, doing all the writing aspect, caring about the kids, putting all the time and effort in, and like leaving and being like, that was a great day, but also you're drained and being really tired and just loving it. Yeah, a lot of reflections on that. But I also like, I want to highlight something really important that is like around what you've been talking about as well, is just good teachers, good educators, good like people in the classroom, in the school in general, will look at a kid with, I'm going to steal one of your favorite lines, Dr. Matt, with curiosity and not with furiosity, if you will.
Yeah.
And like, I just love the fact that you're focused on the curious element rather than the, oh, this kid's not doing something, something's wrong with them, or they're just choosing not to. And it's, let's focus on what we can get out of them and how we can help them, how we can support them, and what we can see in them that makes them incredible individuals so they can be incredible students.
Yeah, and curiosity is one of my favorite words. Yeah.
Yay.
I'm going to hold on to that for a second, just say.
It's so important. It's so important when it comes to parents, even parents speaking to each other for two-parent families, learning to have more curiosity with our partners, but curiosity about the kids. Whether it's even using words directly with them or if it's just your mind, but saying to a kid, wow, I wonder why, blah, blah, like just open-ended rather than us thinking we know anything, or we might know something, but still coming at them with the curiosity and teaching them to that statement, I wonder, is a curiosity statement. It's one of my favorite curiosity statements. Another one is I notice. So for those of you listening who love to take notes, jot those two things down. I wonder. And what was the other one? It's late here.
I notice.
I notice. And it's open-ended. You're not saying, you let them fill it in and you be patient. I learned from Dr. George Betts, who I had the privilege of studying under I got a master's in gifted and talented education. And he would always use questioning like that. And he would use what he called wait time, and just a lot of wait time. And one of the most important things with kids with curiosity is that wait time, not messing it up by interrupting us as the adult, not interrupting. And when they do say something that's juicy, that's helpful, that's insightful, that points us in the right direction, how to actually help this kid, not messing it up by then interrupting again, but instead saying more curiosity. Tell me more. I wonder why you think that. Wonder where you got that idea. You know, it's not that hard, but it is so hard for us to bite our tongues.
I think that goes like real deep into education in general too, is like There's so many teachers out there that are like, I have to be the one in control. If I give any agency to these students, they're going to take over, and like I might lose my entire class, and we're not going to get through the curriculum, and I'm going to get fired, and all these other things. And it's okay to let the kids have that curiosity and like dive into what they care about and give them that control a little bit more in the classroom.
I think that's a really tough issue because teachers, in a way, are trained like that. Like this is by design. If I'm going to be my conspiracy, which I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but if I'm going to be about as much as a conspiracy theorist as I get, I'm going to say, you know, that's not a mistake. And if you look at that, you have 50% of teachers who quit by year 5. That is disgusting and astounding in one of the wealthiest countries in the world that we care so little about this, that 50% of the people who we put in charge of educating our kids quit by year 5. That it's so deeply disturbing to me. I can't even express it properly. And they quit by year 5. So then these new green teachers start. They're trying to do the right thing. They're doing the best that they know how to do. And the leadership that they get, the examples, the magical examples of amazing teachers that they get to see are few and far between.
Absolutely.
A lot of them have left by year 5. We never got to see how much magic they could do because there are ridiculously amazing teachers out there. Teachers are, I would say, the vast majority, like 90% of them, are pretty darn incredible human beings. And then there's some percent of them that shouldn't be anywhere near kids and shouldn't be in the classroom. And then there's that other straggling percent that I don't know. I don't know what they are, but
Yeah.
but most teachers are really amazing human beings. And for them to be so burnt out, so underappreciated, so under-resourced that they leave, it's so sad for our kids. And when I go back to the beginning in terms of unnecessary suffering of kids, that contributes to that as well. So what do you think about, do you have reflections on that stuff, Jake?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I'm 100% in the exact same line as you with that mentality. It's sad. Like I've seen so many teachers just leave or be like, I thought it would be fun to be a teacher. I did something else for, 5-6 years and I came into teaching and this is the hardest thing I've ever done and I don't want to do it anymore. So bye, have fun, everybody. It also reminds me of when I was growing up, I did Boy Scouts and I got to Eagle, and for our Eagle board of review where we sit down and talk to all these people about who you are, what you want to do and all of that stuff. One of the questions was like, who's the most important scout? And it always stuck to me that like the most important scout is the new scouts because they're the future of the entire program. Without them, what happens? You've got nobody, your entire troop dissolves and it's gone. And like the same kind of mentality extends to education as well, where it's like, if we don't care as a country, as individuals, as like groups of people, if you will, like that these teachers are leaving or that the teachers are burnt out and how the impact on the students, how detrimental that is to them in the moment, but then also like 5, 6, 7, 20 years down the road when these students are now the ones who are coming up in the workforce, coming up in like, politics, in education in general. Like it's sad to see.
Yeah. And then you have a population of a lot of people who don't know how to think critically. And then
goes into that conspiracy a little bit. It's like, we don't like people thinking critically.
Yeah. And this is nothing new with thinking like this. I read a book called True Believer by, I think it was Eric Hoffer, that dives into a lot of this stuff. The powers that be, power wants more power.
Yeah.
This is nothing new. I'm not saying anything controversial or new here. And when you have an informed and educated populace who knows how to think for themselves, well, that threatens power.
Mm-hmm.
So on the one hand, we live, I'm sure you have listeners in other countries, but we have a society that's based on freedom and liberty and freedom of speech and all of these sorts of things. And we have laws that are supposed to protect these things in order for us to be free. But when you're too free, you threaten the powers that be. So restricting education, I mean, the fact that kids in America say things like, I hate school ever, is disgusting to me as well. Maybe a couple kids should say that, but that should not be a common thing. And that is a common thing. What does that say about us? What have we done that the thing at the root of our freedom, education, is perceived as something that is that we use the word hate. I hate school. Oh, what? How do we get here? Well, Dr. Matt, I don't know how we even got here in this conversation. I obviously this is not planned or scripted, but this is where we've gotten. Is that cool?
It's important, right? And I think that a lot of the problems with the system we've built and those that maintain it is it falls back to this sort of survivorship bias. If you could do it, you would survive it. And because other people have survived it, the system must work.
Can I interrupt you and say what Dr. Matt is saying, just with using the word bias too? I love cognitive distortions and logical fallacies. These are ways that I have learned to think critically. But just because you throw out the word bias, I just want people to know that they can look up common cognitive biases. But please go ahead. I love this. Yes.
Right. Well, and like addressing cognitive biases is fundamental to my therapy work. Like that's what cognitive behavioral therapy is all about, right? That voice in your head you said earlier, right? That critic. It's like, you suck, Seth. You're not doing this because you're lazy. Well, okay, that is a possibility. What's another possibility? I'm not doing this because I haven't slept in 3 days. Golly gee, I wonder if that might be impacting my output a little bit. One of my kids said to me recently, he's like, I don't know why I don't have any motivation this semester. I was like, well, you did just end a 3-year relationship, buddy. Like, that girl meant something to you, and like your reasons for breaking up were good ones, but like you can't replace something with nothing. He's like, no, I'm pretty sure I suck. And like the thing is that left unchecked, those cognitive distortions take root, right? They're like weeds in a garden, and they just grow and they grow and they choke out all the other things you're trying to grow, because the brain can be pretty insidious. And well, if you suck at school, well, what's stopping you from sucking at making friends, or being in a band, or having somebody want to date you, or. As we've crammed more and more into the school day and demanded more and more from our teachers, those moments of interpersonal connection have withered and in a lot of cases died. I can think back to the moments I had with teachers growing up that like shaped me as a student and now as someone who works with kids. But when I'm in schools all over the country all the time, and the fact that any teacher can find any moment to connect with anyone, a colleague or a student, is remarkable, because they're
spread thin.
What's the Tolkien line? Like butter over too much bread. Jake, did I get that right?
I think so. I'm not super well versed on quoting Tolkien compared to a bunch of other people, but I'll look it up and throw it in for you.
Right. On my honeymoon, we accidentally stumbled into the bar that he used to work in Zagreb, Croatia. And I looked at my wife, she's like, fine. So I was just like, sitting there, I was like, ah. And like, it's funny. Let's use this actually as a great example, right, of adapting educational things to the ADHD brain. I tried to read Lord of the Rings as a kid. It's one of those books you're supposed to read. I could not get through it for shit, because every part of it's like Boromir, who was the sire of Theramir, who was the son and cousin of Aramir, who once went to prom with Steve. Like, Tolkien like just adds in so much detail, and it's rich and it's dense, and that's great.
Yes.
I would lose it. I couldn't read any Lord of the Rings books. When the movies came out, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the world of it.
Yeah.
And then found, and this is Michael Hopkins, who did, well, the version I read, did these amazing graphic novels of the Lord of the Rings. And that's a better thing for you. So the movie worked better for me. The graphic novels worked better for me. But in many educational systems, the kid who, giant air quotes, can't read Lord of the Rings is a failure. But like, how is that so backward? It's a great text. We want kids to engage with the text. How they do so, I think, is secondary.
Yeah. And that brings up a lot of different thoughts. Do you guys mind if I grab a drink real quick? But
go ahead, please.
Question for you guys, but you can take it in a drink. All right, let me grab a drink real quick.
He keeps flipping the tables on us. I love it.
It's the best. So real quick, while he's grabbing a drink, who's your favorite character in Lord of the Rings, and why is it Boromir?
Oh gosh, have you ever heard of the Rizzo effect?
I have not.
So the Rizzo effect, it's a literary trope where the tragic character becomes significantly more interesting than the protagonist.
Mm.
Because Sandy is a boring character in Greece. I'm sorry, she just is. Rizzo has pathos, right? Like,
Yeah.
so Boromir has pathos. And I've never found Frodo to be a terribly compelling character.
Totally fair.
Sam is a compelling character.
Oh, Sam. Love Sam.
Boromir is a compelling character.
I love Frodo.
So it's like, so the Rizzo effect, it's this thing like, and even if like shows like, you and I both love Danny Phantom, you could make an argument, right, that like Tucker and Sam are significantly more interesting characters than Danny.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%.
It's why I think it's really hard to have a good Superman movie, because Superman has trouble struggling.
Yeah, he's like boring, but not in a like he sucks kind of way.
Right. Every Superman story is like he either loses his powers or finds somebody more powerful than him, and then can he level up to beat that challenge? But the whole thing with Superman is that he's so powerful. Like that's why he's never really worked for me. He works so much better in the comics than he does on screen for that reason.
Yeah.
Anywho, so Seth, early in my career, Nicole Tetra was like, "You'll know you've made it if Seth Perler reaches out to you and asks you to be in TEFOS." And I was like, I don't know what any of those words are. But now I think was a 3-time alum of the Executive Functioning Summit. Can you tell our listeners like what that is, how to access it, why it's the most amazing thing in the entire universe?
Yeah, I will tell you why it's the most amazing thing in the universe. If you go to executivefunctionsummit.com, you can check it out. But I several years ago, I was asked to be on some summits, and then I was like, wow, I could do this. I want the world to know about the term executive function. This is a darn good way to do it. Again, I am angered and disgusted by the fact that we know so little. There's a term, not everything that matters is measured, not everything that's measured matters. When it comes to education, we like to think that if we're measuring it, then it matters. So if we're giving it a grade or a percentage, then it must matter. Well, executive function, again, while it's not rocket science, it is somewhat complicated, and there is a learning curve, and it's not easy. And you'd have to really invest in guiding teachers to understand it, to be able to do service to it. And it's doable, and it should be done, but it's not easily marketable. So that's, again, we could go into conspiracy theory land, but I wanted to do my part during this lifetime to accelerate the speed at which people learn about this concept, because I do believe it's that important. I was a teacher at the time, and when I figured out that the term executive function existed, what I realized as I was like, holy shit, how do I not know about this? Every single student that I have that is struggling, it has to do with executive function in some way or another. Yes, ADHD is the most concrete correlation there. I mean, ADHD is an executive function disorder, every which way you look at it. But all students who are struggling, it has to do it. And what you said, well, kiddo, you haven't slept for 3 days. That impacts executive function. Big T and little T traumas that affect executive function. So many things impact executive function. So I wanted to create something, and this was the 7th year. And thank you, Matt, for being a part of this. And what makes it the best thing in the whole universe is Matt. Just kidding. People like Matt, because what I work very hard on is 2 things in this event. One, I work on getting heart-centered, what I call heart-centered, for lack of a better term, but I just call them heart-centered experts. I do not want to hear fluff. I do not want to interview people who tell their same stories over and over and sound the exact same, and every time they do a presentation and stuff like this. I want people who are coming from the heart. They really care about what they do, and you can feel it when you're listening to someone who's coming from the heart and when you're listening to someone who's on autopilot. So I work very hard to get these heart-centered speakers who are coming from the gut, who really do care passionately about their work, their life's work, whatever that is. And number 2, what makes it special in my eyes is the practicality. I work very hard and I'm probably somewhat annoying as an interviewer to some of my interviewees that I really, really, really insist on practical, practical, practical. I want people to walk away from this thing saying, I know what to do to help my kid. I don't just know a bunch of theory, but I know things that I can actually apply. So that's what I think makes it special. And I'm not proud of much in my life, but I'm proud of that. I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean like, it's really a labor of love, and I've been doing it 7 years. I'm going to stop at 10. I'm tired. I love it so much, but it is hard work creating an event like this. I had 50 speakers this year. I thought, and every year I think about, I have a disease called I complicate the shit out of everything, even simple things.
You have that too?
Syndrome.
Syndrome. Yes. Yep. We'll be added to the DSM-6. But let's go back to me interviewing you guys.
Yeah, it's like you keep flipping it on us. I
haven't forgotten. I want to ask you guys.
I was just setting up a joke. I'm like, do you have someone in your life who suffers from ICTSOOES? And there's hope. It's called coffee and an executive assistant. You too can help someone with ICSUS.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Right, ICSUS. Oh man. Well, the thing that has always inspired me, baffled me, stunned me, whatever word you want to use, about the summit is that there's so much executive functioning content out there, and yet all of it's behind paywalls, right? It's like, oh, do you want to learn how to help your ADHD kid? By the way, this advice isn't very good, but you have to pay a shit ton of money for it. Hey, Seth, can you tell our listeners how much does it cost to access TEFOS?
Well, when I run it, the weekend's free every year. So, and I do a 4-day weekend every year. And then I sell a VIP pass for $100. Yeah, it's amazing. And then all my content on YouTube. And I don't like when I go to YouTube and somebody's like teasing you with something. I've never liked that. And I've always done like golden rule type marketing. Like I feel like, hey, this is my job. I'm not afraid to ask for money for things. However, I want to serve too. And all my stuff, I don't hold back on my YouTube stuff. Like I give real solutions. I treat people how I want to be treated. And I try to make exceptional content and put it out there. And there's tons of it. I want and need to make a living, but I love also putting stuff out there for free. There's no reason not to.
Couldn't agree more. And we have colleagues who don't share their stuff, don't put stuff out for free. And I understand it. I even respect it. But I think, that heart alignment, the first time I talked to you, I was like, you and I, we have a similar ethos around this, because honestly, I want people to know what I know. If I raise the floor, then I can help everybody else raise the ceiling. And I think that really matters.
And this was really hard for me because I grew up with the scarcity mindset. And I'm so inspired by Seth Godin. I started studying Seth Godin's stuff. I don't know if you guys know him, but in about 2008. And it was so affirming to hear somebody talk about marketing in terms of generosity and stuff that I believe in service and giving. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but his shtick is sort of like, hey, I made something great. I hope you like it. And that is like, I can resonate with that.
Yep.
I can resonate with that. There is no scarcity. I don't like the scarcity. I don't believe in competitors. Why? Because I choose not to. I can have a conversation with you about my competition, but I choose in my mind to not perceive it. I never, ever have scarcity about that ever. And I never will, because I've chosen a frame where it's just like, yeah, I have a no competition clause. What I like to make up weird things. So mine's called a no competition clause. You can't compete against me because I have no competitors. I am just there to serve. We're all just trying to help kids. You're not my competitor. Like, no, we're just helping kids. Like, there's enough for everybody. Now that's very disturbing. Then we can talk about billionaires and stuff like that. Like, I don't believe that there's any such thing as a billionaire, meaning that I don't believe that any person has brought that much value to the planet. I don't believe that is a thing. And I believe that there are people living in abject poverty who've brought more value to people in their life than billionaires have. And that's just a frame. I get to choose it. I get to have whatever frame I want, but I get to also have, a mind where I've learned to think critically, and it's not perfect, but I can think pretty critically and come up with ideas that I can trust. And that is what I want for my students. I want them to be able to create their own thoughts and have their own beliefs and be who they are and be able to sift through what their parents and their culture and subcultures and schools and all these things have tried to teach, and oftentimes well-meaning people, but to be, I feel like part of adulting, and I wonder what you guys think of this, but I feel like a very big part of adulting for me is sifting through all the bullshit from my life to figure out, what does Seth think about X, Y, and Z? Because the stuff that I learned from my parents and my teachers and all this, it's deep. What do I really think? And as a people pleaser, that was really hard for me to change, just like my scarcity stuff. But the brain changes. Beliefs can change.
You could even make the argument that they should.
What?
A critical thinker engages with the world actively. Oh, man. It's such a privilege to get to elevate people's good work. And if we can use this platform to do that, that's great. But it's funny because somebody that I respect a great deal was like, well, the problem with having a podcast is that you're essentially serving as free advertising for these other people. And I was like, yeah, how many podcasts have I been on as a guest?
Hey, on my summit, I want to elevate you. I want to share. Yeah, that's such a strange, and I'm glad that I can think of it that way, but that's such a strange frame.
It's never worked for me, and maybe that makes me a bad capitalist. And honestly, that feels like a compliment these days,
That's good.
right? Because we know that billionaires are just sociopaths with better PR.
Do you know Professor Wolf? Do you follow Professor Wolf?
Mm-mm.
Anti-capitalist. So I'm very much into anti-capitalism, actually.
Get out of my head.
Yeah.
And it's hard because I've had conversations with people when I first started exploring that, and they're so compelling because capitalism, again, is so deep in us. But what's really interesting to me, I am in a different country now, and I'm not going to say where, but being in a different country and then coming back to the United States, it is amazing how being in the United States makes you want to buy shit.
Yeah.
And being away from the United States for several months at a time and coming back, for any of you who have not tried this, it is amazing to like notice this creepy feeling. It's like, oh, I feel like buying stuff I don't need. Like, what's going on? Like, it is so baked in and we're so unaware of it. Of course, I never knew that until I had distance from it, you know. Meanwhile, I do want to ask you guys one question before we end up, but
Go ahead.
are you sure it's time? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think about this a lot, but I've never had this conversation publicly, so this will be fun. So here's, I feel like this is a good place for us. I feel like us three having this conversation is a good group of people to have this conversation. So I often think about, one of the things, again, with critical thinking is thinking about the reason we have the education system that we have is because we made it. We created it. But we assume, it's like we almost assume like it's just always been there. Like when I tell people that I don't believe in letter grades, one of the things that I've heard so many times that rolls off the tongue for people because we're so indoctrinated in it is this. Well, then how are you supposed to know how a kid's doing? Like that's the first thing that comes into some people's heads, because not that they can't contemplate, but they haven't been empowered to contemplate that there are many ways to see how a kid's doing. Letter grades are not the only one, and they're also a pretty shitty. I've used the word shit a lot. Sorry, audience out there who doesn't like that word, but they're a pretty shitty way of describing how a human being is doing in a lot of ways. So, my question for you guys is this: let's play a game called, and maybe Matt can come up with the acronym for this. Let's play a game called Imagine That Schools Never Existed in the first place. What would be the ideal school that we created? Now, there are some rules. We have to imagine that it's somewhat modern day. And I know it's weird to imagine that there's modern day without ever having schools, but let's pretend that it's modern day and they don't exist. They are completely don't exist at all. And we get to think of ways to create them and that would really serve human beings, that would serve society as a whole, the world as a whole, kids. What might it look like? And I'll give you an example of one thing that I would say. And that would be that the bell system of going from class to class to class I'm going to first period, second period, third period would not exist. That we would have deep dives for weeks on end into certain subjects, and they would be interdisciplinary things. So it's going to be very project based. So kids would have a project, but they would be learning math and science and art and all sorts of things while they're doing a passion project. And then we'd move on to other projects and things like this. So and it wouldn't be 5 days a week. It would be 4 days a week of school, and the schedule would be different. So anyhow, there's just a little teaser. What comes to your guys' head?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've always thought about this kind of stuff as like, what should education look like? And I love that you're asking as well, because like for me, I've always hated the bell system. I've always hated grades. I've never liked letter grades. I taught a class recently and I was like, hey guys, I don't care about grades. I think they're pointless. And everyone was like, what? How do you not like grades? You're a teacher. And I was like, you guys are all seniors. How do you not, you've never had somebody not care about grades? So like for me, I would say that a really good aspect of education in that world, the theoretical world, would be like a hub as a place where kids go. And along the same lines, where it's more the interdisciplinary, project-based learning, more passion-driven than it is just like, I'm up here telling you the things you have to learn. If we really want to go that route where it's like everyone has to know 20 things before they're done each grade, like give us a list and have the kids figure it out on their own, or come to the teachers as mentors to help guide them through those specific things, alongside the fact that these kids are exploring the things they're curious about. And it also gets other teachers involved at the same time. So you can have more than just one teacher in the classroom, and you can have different perspectives. And at the same time, you can pair off with the community. And if it's like a kid doesn't care about math or science or English or any of the actual like core stuff, but they're really deep into like film, why not let them have, come to school for a little bit, check in, and then we'll pair you up with a local filmmaker or a local like TV host or something, or like a local like radio station that does some aspect of film, and go in that direction. So when they're 12, 13, 14, 15, they're diving into those things they're interested in and learning if they actually want to do it, or if they're like, yeah, that's not for me, rather than I've gone into education and now it's my senior year. Here I am in a classroom, student teaching, second half of senior year in college, and then realizing, oh, I might not want to be a teacher. What do I do now? I guess I'm going to be a teacher anyway. It's like that's where I would take it a little bit. And obviously there's a lot more depth to it, but
yeah, love it.
Oh man. All right. Jake, your answers were great, as they always are.
Oh, thanks.
I think I would take a slightly different approach to it. I think that we should allow for a lot more choice in what classes are taught when, choice in how you're assessed, choice in things that are taught that are not just purely academic, right? Life skills, social skills, working with your hands, like bring back shop, bring back home ec, bring back arts, all those things. But honestly, the most important thing to me is that schools have become the de facto community mental health centers. They've become the de facto daycares, right? We are asking teachers to do a lot more. We need to fully fund whatever schools look like and staff them appropriately. In an ideal world, we would have more mental health support, and we would have more green space, and we would have just more staff, and these things would be funded, and we wouldn't have $30 million high school football stadiums, the library that has 2 dog-eared copies of Wind in the Willows. I have nothing against sports, but our priorities have gone so out of whack there.
Yeah.
So, okay. Seth, you by interviewing us, well, the podcast has gone long, which is great, because honestly, it's been a rich and deep conversation. We're sort of getting to the part where we need to start wrapping up. So, Jake, can we speed round our final questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to switch my final question if that's okay.
Because we already did that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because Seth already spoiled what his favorite word is, curiosity, which is a good thing though. But my question for you instead is going to be, who's your favorite philosopher and why?
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know necessarily names of philosophers, but I'll say this. I'm going to mention 2 people, and I don't know if they're technically philosophers or not. One is going to be Nietzsche. And I don't even know if I said Nietzsche's name right.
You did. You did.
The reason that I say that is because I do remember reading The Hobbit when I was 11 or 12 or 13, and like I was into it. And I wasn't a voracious reader, but I like to read, and that changed my life. Well, Nietzsche changed my life, and I read Nietzsche when I was maybe 16, and I was reading like Emily Dickinson and stuff that like I don't know if kids read it nowadays or not, but like stuff where with my weak executive function, I had to take a very long time to read small segments, and I loved it. That was really life changing for me reading Nietzsche. So that I would say that's one. Number two, and I know this is a lightning round, so I'll keep it short. And I don't know if this is a philosopher, but this I'm going to say is Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, who passed away a few years ago, who I had the chance to meet one time. I read a book. My dad was and is a voracious reader of everything. And he had this book called Your Erroneous Zones by Wayne Dyer from like 1970 or something. I was about 13 years old. I read that. I read I'm Okay, You're Okay. And I read Elizabeth Kubler-Ross On Death and Dying.
Oh,
When I was 13 and 14. But those were three pivotal books in my life. But the Wayne Dyer one was the first time ever in my life that I've ever read that was talking openly about the problems that I was having without any shame. And that was the first time that I had ever seen anything like that. And I think that has shaped a lot of the direction that I ended up going in my life and the frames that I have today. The seed was sort of planted there. So was that a decent answer?
Absolutely. Nietzsche's one of my favorites personally too.
Yeah.
Said his name, I was like, oh, amazing.
and listeners, that is exactly what Jake did. So just, right, just like the emoji. All right, Seth, if you could have one superhero on speed dial, who would it be and why?
I know what superpower I'd want to have. So maybe, okay, I'd probably do the same one then. This is total fantasy land though. I mean, I'm thinking about this through like a superhero adventure movie though, but I have the most obscure one. Do you remember the Wonder Twins?
Oh, yeah.
I always thought that to be able to change into any creature is the coolest superpower ever. Like that to me, such an underrated superhero to be able to change into that's what I'd want on speed dial. So I could be like, hey, need some help.
Like, I couldn't agree more. This and such a gifted kid answer, because the biggest hack to the what superpower do you want question is always shapeshifting, because then you have every power.
Right?
You want to be invisible, you can turn into an ant or a mite. You want to be able to fly, turn into an eagle or a 747. Like, I mean, that's the thing. It's like shapeshifting is the ultimate superhero hack. So A plus gold star. Now that we believe in grades, guys, we don't. Long distance high five. There you go. We've done well. We've positively reinforced you. Seth, I love the work you do. I love calling you a colleague. I love calling you a friend. I mean, every time I talk to you, I feel so affirmed in the work we're doing here, no matter how far away physically we might be from your undisclosed location. So we're going to wrap up this episode, but thank you for everything you do. We'll put how to find everything about TEFOS in the show notes. But thank you so much. It's always a delight to talk to you, and I feel better for it. So I know your clients must as well.
Thanks for saying that. I want to say publicly, thank you guys for what you're doing. And that, like I said, I think like 90% of educators are just like these incredible people and really get the short end of the stick. But not only that, there are so many people now doing amazing work in service of kids that are podcasting, that are blogging, or that are YouTubing or Instagram or whatever. There are so many people that are out there doing good work, life-changing work. I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I want to say thank you to you guys. And for everybody listening, please support the creators that are doing this. This is often thankless. We work very hard behind the scenes to create things for people. There's so many people doing good work. Support your creators out there. They need it. It matters. Help them do the work that they're doing, because our government is not doing enough for so many people that really need it. And people are doing good work. So don't just like consume their content. but please support them. Sorry for putting in a plug for everybody. But
Oh, plug away.
I think it's so important.
It's true, right? Like these things are a labor of love. And there's a reason you said you've got 3 more years of the summit, right? I mean, it takes a lot out of you and there's a need for it. And I'm going to say this publicly, and maybe we could even edit this out of the podcast, Jake. I don't know. But like, Seth, if it makes sense to have a conversation, you and I, about transferring that to the Neurodiversity Collective when that race is run, I know it would be my great honor to take that baton from you. And like I said, it's worth a different conversation than right now. But like that, just when you said that, I was like, oh damn, maybe we could do that. But anyway, like I said, changing the world is a work of heart. That also means, right, that we deserve to get paid for our time. So support creators. That's a thing.
It is.
And then we support our students who will become those creators and the world becomes a richer place.
That's right. That's right. These are people who were kids. This is a time like no other where your child can grow up and even despite executive function challenges, they can find something that they're passionate about that serves humanity and create a life around that. And it is hard. Don't let anybody tell you, but they can do with that. But the people that you love their work right now, whether it's giving them the like comment, putting comments down there to help the algorithm or liking it or giving them thumbs up or whatever, all that silly stuff. It's not silly. It really supports people sharing their stuff. So I don't know. I'm just a big believer in it. I think that, one of the privileges of what I do interviewing people with TEFOS and then what you guys do interviewing all the time is you get to do the pre-interview and the post-interview and really see behind the scenes all these people that are doing amazing work that impacts the lives of kids and families. So yeah, support your creators, support Matt and Jake, share the podcast. They didn't pay me to say this or ask me to.
No, just like you don't pay me to sing your praises, but as I am fond of saying on the show, it's easy to say when it's true. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up and I'll go to our other jobs that fuel this work we do. But Seth, you're amazing. We'll put all your information in the notes, but thank you for being here. We really means a lot to us.
Thanks, guys.
And for all of us here at Nerding Out on Neurodiversity, thank you for learning with us and learning from us. Thank you, as always, for trusting us with your time. It means the world to us. Jake, you want to send us out?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening to this incredible conversation. And Seth, what a great joy. I've heard your name in passing. I've seen things here and there, but like being able to sit down and talk with you and hear like your thoughts and just really dive into everything was incredible. So thank you.
Right on. Thank you, guys.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good one, everybody. Nerding Out on Neurodiversity is brought to you by Dr. Matt Zakreski and the team at the Neurodiversity Collective. To learn more about the Neurodiversity Collective or to be a guest on the podcast, please visit our website at www.theneurodversitycollective.com/podcast. Audio and production by Jake Noonan. Show your support by subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, and telling your friends about us. Our Instagram and social media handles are at #NoonPodcast, NOON podcast. Your support is appreciated and keeps us going. All discussions presented on this podcast are strictly for informational purposes, awareness, and understanding. The advice presented is not and should not be considered to be therapeutic in nature. If you have any mental health questions, please contact your provider. All rights reserved.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.